I'm Deepak Chopra. You're watching New Realities.
Welcome back to New Realities. I am here with my good friend and host, Suzanne Ross of, as you see on the screen, the Sedona Ascension Retreat. Its 10th anniversary coming in March 14th to the 16th, 2025.
Join us for our 10th anniversary celebration during our 2025 Sedona Ascension Retreat, celebrating a new humanity uniting and a new earth arising, featuring on-stage presentations,
all crystallized seed at the center of that orb of light is your physical mind.
So today we'll be talking about religion versus spirituality.
This path that we're all on has been well mapped. The science is established, and what we are doing today is recovering it.
Today we have a fantastic guest, one of the keynote speakers, Sarah Breskman Cosme, who's leading a sort of revolution of Dolores Cannon work about past life, but she is tapping into these other levels of awareness that haven't been touched before. Suzanne, you have anything to say?
Yes, today we do have Sarah Breskman Cosme, and I have been immersed in Sarah's books. Thank you for putting them on Audible, because I go on these big long nature walks every morning and I can listen to your books. And wow, the hypnotist journey to Atlantis, I think it's called something similar to that. Oh my goodness, I have never heard anything like that. Sarah, you've really mastered this QHHT method of tapping into someone's quantum memory.
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. Thank you so much. I mean, well, I really love what I do so much. I mean, I'm searching too. I'm just like everyone else, and I want to find out about the secrets of the universe because I want to know these deeper questions. And so it's just as exciting for me as, it is for everybody else to learn these truths. And I don't write my books. I am only the transcriber because it comes from this higher source that comes out of my clients. And I'm just lucky that they choose me. I feel like I'm just on this journey. I mean, I would love to take credit for being the author, but I'm literally the transcriber.
I mean, you're so humble, Sarah, and that's really what struck me the very first time I met you. You're like, I don't know. I just started transcribing these books and they became popular. I love that. I love that, being so humble. But the parts that you do write to, Sarah, I want to say you're a prolific writer.
The people who don't know your work so well or are watching now, why don't you talk about some of the, I think, very amazing discoveries you've made by doing your work, and that things people haven't even brought out ever. Not even Dolores Cannon has seen the patterns and the associations that you've discovered. So talk about some of your really profound discoveries, okay?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's really just so mind-blowing to me. So, what I do basically is I bring my clients to the very deepest level of trance and I access that part of them that knows everything about them. So when you go deep within anyone, you reach the same place, you reach universal consciousness. And essentially that's saying we are all one, we are everyone you see is true. And in that way, you can find out anything about the universe, about, the whole system. And I like to find out everything. So I want to know what is going on in this universe. Why are we here? What are we doing this for? And what's really amazing to me is that when I'm going and researching through my clients' deep subconscious, I'm learning that the answers are the same and it's validating this information that I've been receiving. And the way that I go about doing my research is I have 5 or 6 different hypnosis subjects that I use to work on certain material, and they never meet one another. So I ask them all the same questions and I'm researching through their memories. And in that way, I can validate the information that comes through. Some of the most mind-blowing information started coming in 2018. So it started coming mostly about Atlantis. And I always thought that I moved to the Florida Keys because I liked the warm weather. But I'm actually here to be close to that energy of Atlantis because it helps me uncover this information. And what's really interesting is civilizations leave an imprint, especially within water. And a lot of people that are drawn to these places that are close to where Atlantis used to be are actually using that energy to help propel them in their life. And it's actually triggering things without them really having to do anything to help them find out these deeper messages and these memories. One of the most profound sessions I ever had was with one of my friends, and her name is Jen, and she was actually my client that I use for my book, A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis. Now, Jen, I had known her for over 10 years. And that's very important because I knew that she didn't believe in any of this stuff. I knew she wasn't open spiritually. I knew that, she didn't believe in extraterrestrials or even Atlantis because she was a teacher at my kids' school and we were friends. So I was doing this work already and I had tried to talk to her about spiritual things, but she wasn't interested at all. So I knew she wasn't into this stuff at all. But one day I found out that there was a class coming to Florida and I needed a subject that I could regress quickly and take that video submission to this class. And I happened to be sitting next to her and I asked her if she would be my hypnosis subject. And I instantly regretted that because I knew she wasn't open to this stuff and she didn't even believe in past lives. So why would I ask that? Why would I ask her? It just sort of like flowed out of my mouth. And I asked her if she would do this with me. And I told her I do Dolores Cannon's method. Basically, you can find out anything about yourself. You can find out your true purpose in this life. You can even find out, what you're doing here. And you can even heal yourself if you have any physical issues. And she just stared at me and she said, wow, I am actually dealing with a physical issue. And she hadn't told anyone from the school where she worked. And she had been suffering from this brain condition called pseudotumor cerebri. And basically, what it was this flooding of her brain. And she was working closely with this team of specialists at the University of Miami. And they told her there's no cure for this. But there was actually it was actually very scary because she was losing vision out of her left eye and they were thinking that she might even suffer from a stroke. And they really told her that she didn't have much longer to live, maybe 20 years with the heavy duty medication. So she was devastated and she hadn't told anyone yet. So here I am approaching her and asking her if she wanted to do a session. And she said she would definitely be my hypnosis subject, even if she didn't believe in this stuff, because she was just devastated and didn't know what else to do. Basically, there was nothing else to do, she thought. So she agreed. And in our first session, when I regressed my friend who didn't believe in any of this stuff, she remembered in so much detail these past lives. She remembered this past life in the 1970s where she was a woman named Christy. She could remember her name. She could remember everything. The details were astounding. And she realized that she had uncovered with a different hypnotherapist information about Atlantis and Lemuria. She had uncovered this already in the 1970s. And she had tried to share it, but it was too soon. And she was called crazy. And then she was lobotomized at the Bellevue Hospital in New York City. Yeah, the details were astounding. And then she after being lobotomized, And the details that she could remember of not being able to look up, of what happened after the lobotomy, she could go deeper into her mind. She killed herself and jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge in around the holidays. Yeah. And so then she realized upon death, so as she's leaving her body, she didn't fall. Her soul was snatched up out of the body, and she could feel herself like levitating, but she could see the body drop. And she was instantly downloaded with the information that she would have to do this again. And this was the lifetime she was back in to do this again, to uncover this information and share this with the world. So through that first session, we also learned that she could remember this other lifetime she lived. This is the information she was finding out about with this other hypnotist. And she could remember another lifetime in the civilization that was in the South Pacific. And it was a beautiful civilization where women were the natural leaders of that society. And the reason behind that was because women could pass through the subconscious without teaching their daughters information about plants and information about different herbs that didn't have to be taught. And this knowledge was so important. And that's one of the reasons why the women were just the natural leaders of that time. She also saw that they used certain crystals and they use like sacred geometry in order to communicate with their home planet. It was astounding, the information that started coming through.
You got her back to that lifetime, and then she had a transformation, obviously, but then
Yeah.
what else did you discover about Atlantis? I mean, how did the whole thing show up?
So at this time, we're doing our first session. Neither one of us knew that this was Atlantis and Lemuria yet. So I'm listening to this amazing society in the South Pacific, and then she realizes that she was next in line to become the leader. And so as the leader, she would be basically in charge of everything. Her mother was the current leader. And she noticed that there were these visitors that showed up, and they came in these like travel like spheres. So they were like crafts basically, but they had this type of stealth technology where you couldn't see into the ship. When the ships landed, there were people that got out. There were people with very high technology. And she realized that these ships were also powered with this type of energy that was all over the earth, and it would be sucked up through these fans, and the ship would be propelled. It was like using a propulsion type system. And when these people arrived, they had obviously been watching her society for a while, but the society didn't know. They were looking for these particular type of crystals. And when they couldn't get what they wanted, this took a little while, but when they couldn't get what they wanted, they took Jen in that lifetime, she's next in line to be a leader, took her and made her watch as they destroyed the entire South Pacific civilization. So as she's watching from an observing standpoint, she's seeing that what they did is they had nuclear devices. So they set off in rifts under the ocean, these type of nuclear, almost like an atomic bomb, even under the ocean, that created these huge tidal waves. And there were 2 tidal waves, and she could watch in very horrific detail as that entire civilization was just sunk. The reason why that civilization sunk was because the outside of the civilization had these like mountain-like structures, and the inside was flat. But because of this, the powerful technology, it destroyed the whole civilization. And then she was taken as a prisoner and spent the rest of her life in a prison in this highly advanced place. And so this place was so advanced, it had the use of stem cell technology, and they were cloning organs, and she could see these crafts that were flying, and it was a very beautiful city. At this point, we still don't know that these 2 civilizations are Atlantis and Lemuria until the end of that life. And then I asked to speak with her higher self. So the higher self of each person knows everything. So it's actually like recording all the information that your soul has ever lived. So it knows everything, and it has communication with so many other realms that you're currently living. So the higher self, when I asked it, why did you show her this lifetime? They said that the two of us had decided before birth that we would come together in this way, and that we would start doing sessions to uncover this information, and that these two places were Atlantis and Lemuria, and that the civilization had been waiting for this information, that the information wasn't ready in the 1970s, that we had to wait for the evolution of consciousness to hit a certain point when we'd be ready for this information, and the time was now that we can be ready for it, and that people would heal themselves just by hearing about it. And I thought, whatever. I mean, in my mind, I thought, nice story. But then I asked, well, what is the very root cause of her brain condition? You know, the pseudotumor cerebri. What is the root cause of that? And her higher self said the root cause was the catalyst to get her to come see me, that she wouldn't have had a session had she not had a catalyst. And that is very true. She probably wouldn't have had that session with me. So then I asked, well, can you release it since she had the session? And they said yes. And then Jen could feel it draining during the session. She said, I can feel it draining behind my left eye. And she comes out of the session and she can see better already. So she goes back to the team of specialists and she's healed. They can't even believe it. So that's why we decided to go back and do more. But as far as like all these profound things that started coming, what is really profound to me personally is that I didn't set out consciously to do any of this stuff. It's been almost like the universe like has been sending me all these bits and pieces, or all this information that fits into these books, and I'm not searching for it. So when I was working on this Atlantis information, the higher self said, write all this information down, just transcribe it, just write it down. All of a sudden, this crazy phenomenon started happening in my office, and I literally thought it was a coincidence that people that didn't know that I was working on this, or, you know, I had never met them before, started coming in for their sessions. I remembered the same time period. And I wasn't leading them. I didn't say, go back to Atlantis or Lemuria or anything like that. They just started remembering these lifetimes. And then, you know, the higher selves of, you know, my clients, or of Jen's higher self, kept saying, you need to put this in a book. You need to put this in a book and we will share it for you. Sorry, I know my connection's a little unstable. Hopefully you can hear me.
No, that's okay. You're good. So keep going. So you need to put it into a book. And
Okay. And that this higher consciousness would share it for me. So I did just that. I self-published my books. How did everybody know about me? I don't have a publisher.
Here it's clearly orchestrating all of this for you.
So it has been an interesting ride, because I'm literally just doing what I'm told to do.
so you not only discover the past, you help people heal from the present. I mean, that's fantastic.
Well, it seems that almost every single person, or this is what I find in my sessions, that almost every single person has had, oh, well, all time is happening now, has a lifetime in Atlantis or Lemuria.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when a large group settles like a karmic debt, that's, I mean, when shifting occurs. So, I mean, there's a shift happening right now. This is a perfect time for these collectives to shift and move past that trauma. Because essentially, when really large groups, we're talking millions and millions of people died in Atlantis and Lemuria for these destructions. There's so much karma and so much trauma to account for. So when something like that happens, there needs to be a rebalancing, and there needs to be a way to kind of move past that trauma and evolve to another level. And so essentially, what I've been told is we all chose now as the perfect opportunity to do this. So a lot of people, that's why they have these feelings of like loving Lemuria or resonance with Atlantis, because there's a reason for that. Whenever you have a feeling of like that, it usually tells you that you had a life there, or you have some desire to connect with that information.
Mm. But the other thing, I mean, jump in if you have a question too, Suzanne, but I, I just want to say the other amazing thing, not only the past, but you trace people's ET lifetime connections and why they're here. Do you want to talk about that study and the patterns you discover
Sure.
in certain people? That's really fantastic.
Thanks. I mean, all this stuff started coming to me because I never sought it out. But what's really interesting is that since all time is happening in the now, there's other versions of ourselves that are aware of us here, obviously, and communicate with us. And so what I started to notice is that your eyes contain the blueprint of your soul. Or what has started coming through my sessions is that they've been saying, the higher selves has been saying that your iris shows the blueprint of your souls. There's a reason why you have all these rings and dots and things like that in your iris, and the color is projecting information. So essentially, you have this light within you, which is source. And when you're looking into somebody's eyes, this light is coming through your eyes and projecting the information and your soul's blueprint. And so what I've noticed is that different color eyes and even blood types and birthmarks mean certain things. It's almost like a clue. So what I started noticing is that, or what has been coming through is like, you can almost tell from the different color eyes what projection this person is sending into somebody else's soul. It actually really means something. Who knew that this meant something? But it's serving as like a clue. So everybody has like another version of themselves. That's what you would call extraterrestrial or interdimensional. Everyone does. Everyone has this. Whether or not you're experiencing communication with that aspect is entirely up to your soul and the agreements you have. But just like we have what you would say is a past version, we have future versions too. There are other versions of ourselves, and we're becoming more aware of them even. So a lot of people are starting to become aware of them.
But what did you discover about particular races, particular origins, particular physical marks on the body specifically, which is really interesting?
Sure. So if you look on your body and you see like birthmarks or even freckles that look like Orion's belt,
Mhm.
it generally means that's the origin of where your soul came through. So Orion's belt is like a stargate, and a lot of souls originated through that stargate, or that's sort of like the portal where they came from. If you have like a symbol of a triangle, that actually usually means you're part of a like a galactic system where you're sort of like incognito here, and you're part of a group, and you're marked by this thing. You have a lot of protection here.
Mm.
It's really interesting. Birthmarks, freckles, and certain signs mean something. It often means where you're from, or who's communicating with you, who's watching over you, what sort of ancestry you have. If you have brown eyes in general, it means you're projecting through the light within your soul really ancient earth information. So what I've been told in my sessions is that brown eyes is like projecting information of reincarnating a lot on the earth plane, whereas like very blue, and that it depends on the color eyes too, because through a lot of higher selves, they've been talking about these projections of a lighter type of brown eye, which is projecting this type of race that's actually incarnating in humans now, called the Tuatha De Danann. And they'll have like a lighter color brown eyes in general. And that's, they're usually like super bubbly and very almost like fairy-like. And then you get blue eyes, which are usually ancient souls from a different realm. And they're projecting that information into this sphere, you know? So it's really interesting. Then if you have yellow or gold in your eyes, then it's almost a telltale sign that you have a lot of Andromeda influence. Just so interesting. Then if you have a crown around your pupil, that's usually a telltale sign that you're projecting Pleiadian information, or you are an incarnated Pleiadian. I started learning about that even when I was working with Jen. So it seems to be a total clue. And then if you have green eyes, you seem to be projecting a lot of information from Lyra. And so green eyes are interesting because people with green eyes are often very psychic. And sometimes you got to watch them around your technology because they're projecting almost like a wind tunnel, such high frequency and information that it doesn't often mesh or harmonize with the frequency here. And then if you go into people's memories even deeper, the pharaohs, a lot of the pharaohs had red hair, green eyes, and astigmatism and Rh negative blood. So this is super interesting because Rh negative blood is usually like a total clue that you're a projection of this type of extraterrestrial race. So if you have this combination of like green eyes, Rh negative blood, and red hair, that was considered the gift of the stars.
Wow.
So people with that combination can actually really, really tune in, and they can connect with this other race of or other version of themselves.
Isn't that fascinating, Suzanne? What do you make of that?
It is. And as I'm sitting here listening, I have green eyes. And I was in my front yard one day a few years ago, and I literally felt this paw like whip out in front of me and a tail come around. And this voice came through and said, I am Lorenzi from Lyra, and I am here to give you strength and courage on your journey. And I was just sitting in my front yard staring at the sun going, what? Wow. And so I knew then that I had a Lyran aspect named Lorenzi that was trying to come through me at that time. So just some confirmation around what you're saying. So fascinating.
Well, maybe
That's amazing.
Regress Suzanne. You should maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd love it.
let's learn more about Lyra.
Yeah, let's do that. In one of your books, Sarah, you are regressing a gal who takes us all the way back to the beginning of planet Earth. And she's talking about this ship that crashes, and then she's aboard this ship and they encounter these primitive beings, and they ultimately realize that they're there to hybridize with these beings. And then at some point it's revealed that there's actually a collective whose mission it is to colonize planet Earth. And not to give away the content of your book, because I want to be careful not to do that, but wow, that fascinated me so much. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So it seems that on other levels of that we're also experiencing that there's certain aspects of us that ran out of minerals and a type of crystal that other version that extraterrestrial, if you want to call it that, versions of ourselves were using this mineral to almost create their own realm. Like they could they had the ability to create their own realm. And what they would do is they would go into this realm, and then they would understand the secrets of the universe, and they would be able to shock themselves into full enlightenment. And everybody had to go into this realm. It was so fascinating. When they went into the realm, in people's memories, they would remember all of a sudden that the secret of the whole universe was that this life was like a game, and that it's set up in a game type fashion, and that everything is moving in a figure eight motion. So there's no end and no beginning, but the universe, so all of our experiences fold up on itself, and that we're constantly expanding our experiences, expanding our consciousness. And this is how we can really fully understand like who we really are. And everybody in that civilization, and this was the Pleiades in their memories, this was the Pleiades. Everyone had to go through this, but they were running out of resources. So there was an issue that they were running out of this resource, but they had done a lot of missions to try to find it, and they noticed that Earth was full of this resource.
Wow.
So they wanted to seed Earth for many reasons. This is also part of an experiment. That's part of why they wanted to seed Earth. But they also wanted to get these resources. So in a sense, there are so many agendas for why they came to Earth. One of the agendas is that on another level, and everyone is part of this group. Everyone is part of this ancient group. Every soul you see, they're all part of this. On this other level, we couldn't move past a certain point of our evolution without seeing how us, the experiment, can evolve our consciousness. So by watching us evolve our consciousness, then we will be able to evolve ours. So in a sense, we are the experiment and the ones doing the experiment.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
No, but what you're describing sounds like the Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece. Have you ever looked at that? How people would go on
No.
this inner journey and find out more of themselves and connect with the cosmos. And was a practice for hundreds of years in Greece, and the Greece connected to the Pleiadians.
Cool.
They mention the Pleiadian influence in ancient Greece. So there's validation for what you're saying as a kind of passed down through ancient traditions now. So that's very interesting what you're bringing up here.
I
yeah.
love that because I don't
Look up
know.
the Eleusinian mysteries, and it goes back to the Delphi, the oracles of Delphi and all that. But when you talked about earlier about why we're here, what the whole thing, give us the whole picture of what you discovered. Not to give too
Okay.
much away, because of course at the
No,
conference
but
we want you to save some really valuable pieces. But yeah, give us a little bit of that.
all right, I will. But I want to say that one of the higher selves have been saying that these conferences are so important. And one of the reasons why the conferences are so important is because where we're headed is we're going into this phase where we're creating these new earth communities where we're returning to a tribe. And so these conferences are super, super important and valuable. And it helps to go in person because you're meeting these people and you're feeling that connection with everyone. And then that's allowing you to really start to release the fear of being in these tribes. And right now, people are dealing with so many people backstabbing them, or they're fearful of being with other people, or what you would consider people that are tearing them down. But when they go to these conferences, they see that they're actually groups of people that could lift them up. And so these conferences are so important, is what I've been hearing from the higher selves, and to recreate with talk to people, because it actually really changes something in an energetic level. And just like your soul is being broadcast to other people, a lot of times it's not so much what the speakers say, it's who you're connecting with in the audience that actually can activate you, which is so fascinating. But yeah, so essentially going back to that information, what's really super interesting is I asked about, like, why did all this stuff start? I mean, who is like this source or God, and why did all this stuff start? And essentially, what they remembered in their deep subconscious was it started out of a need, out of a lack. So it really, there's a question there as to what happened before. Because when people are really delving deep into the higher self and looking deep into the memories, this isn't the first universe here. So if you think about that, there was some, according to the higher self, we can't comprehend like how old this is in the aspect of time, but there were multiple universes here. So it all started this time around out of a need, out of a lack, out of a desire for something more. And that's essentially how this whole thing started. This never ending experiment started that way.
I like how it is resembling this idea of a simulation, which has become so popular. And, this idea that there's really an aspect of you behind the scenes, maybe your eternal soul, I like to call it your source self, who is, projecting these multiple holographic fractals of itself into these space-time timelines and dimensions, and is sort of the gamer behind the scenes. And at the same time, these avatars all have free will. So they're not just being played, they're playing the game as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I love it. It's so interesting, isn't it? Like you're playing a game essentially. And that's what they always say. They say when you leave this life, you know everything.
Well,
And you're here to play it.
I really appreciate what you said about gatherings and bringing people together. And it's also not just the speakers, it's who you meet. And this is why Suzanne is so passionate about, she does these twice a year, and it's a huge amount of work to put them together. And just like we're starting now in September, this is not till March, but that's the whole planning that takes place. So give us a little preview of what you might be tuning in, and it may change by March, but what will you be bringing to the audience?
Well, first of all, what I love about this particular conference is it's such a loving conference with so many really loving, kind people that gather to this one, and open-minded and here to share. What I'm going to be sharing is I have a new book coming out soon. And so I'm going to be talking all about that. And this is going to be very new. It's about this mystical place called Avalon. And there's also a lot of information about the ancient ways, because what the higher self has said is that people are going to need the ancient ways when we move into this new, basically new earth, new frequency. People are going to be searching for it, but I have been receiving it through people's unconscious memories. There's so many ancient ways that were not only taught to people, or kept by the Knights Templar and the ancient ways from even Atlantis and Lemuria. So I'm going to share really amazing, mind-blowing information that probably a lot of people don't know, and I'm hoping that it can really help people.
And this is stuff you've gotten from your sessions with people. This is all that's been
Yeah.
downloaded.
Yeah, this is coming through in my sessions with my clients, and this is what I've been transcribing for my latest book. So
But just give
we're
us a little
excited.
taste of why Avalon is so important now. What do you think?
Avalon is so important because if it weren't for Avalon, we wouldn't have a lot of the information that we have. So a lot of the information was hidden in Avalon, and actually we should really like thank that place for this information, but there's so many levels to Avalon. So it seemed like Avalon wasn't just a physical place. There are realms within this place that you would call Avalon, and many different timelines and many different realities for Avalon all simultaneously happening in the now. So it's just like if you go to a place like Egypt and you can tap into all the other realities happening in Egypt, it's the same could be said for Avalon.
You know what makes your work so important is the fact that we are coming into the realization of multidimensional senses of self and reality. So you're making it practical, you're making it accessible, and you're giving people real experiences of this realms that we're existing in. So it's fantastic, isn't it, Suzanne, that we have someone who's at the cutting edge of avant-garde spirituality, which is what I like to call it, at the cutting.
It is, and it's not just confirmation and affirmation about things we've already been exploring, like star seeds and multidimensionality and avatars. It's the detail at which the people that you're reading bring through their stories and experiences. I don't think I've ever been exposed to such intricate detail about exactly, what happened in Atlantis and Lemuria. And I can't wait to listen to Secrets of the Sphinx. And then you're bringing through Avalon and the Knights Templar. So yeah, it's really the detail, Alan, and Sarah, which I feel makes Sarah's work so important.
Yeah, and such a big part of the coming conference, which is we're coming into a time where 2025, 2026, there's a woman, Ann Tucker, who's coming, who's talking about this huge shift with this light coming down, and she's going to be there. So we're coming into a bigger realization. So your work is like setting the foundation for everything that's coming in the future. This is truly an ascension conference that we're doing with practical application. So thanks.
I love it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, all the shift is like a shift in the mind, basically. So it's just helping people remember, really.
Right, but also we're coming into something new and unknown. So yes, we're remembering, but all that is about how the future is going to unfold in strange new ways. I feel that makes it really exciting.
It is. I'm excited. It's exciting.
Do you get stuff
And
about
some of the people, I'm sorry, Alan.
No, go ahead.
Some of the people that you've regressed talk about a place and a time where everyone experienced themselves as one, where empathy was so profound that there was such an expanded awareness of their oneness that I feel we are coming back into. The subtitle for this conference is Celebrating a New Humanity Uniting and a New Earth Arising. And I feel like that really goes hand in hand. And so it is a remembrance of another time and place when we were united as one and had that ability of telepathy and, of that miracle manifestation and spontaneous healing, because in another realm, in a higher realm, that already is, and maybe we'll just become aware of it as we raise our vibration.
Definitely. I love it. Yes. I mean, all of those things is new to us. And we're starting to feel this newness already. I mean, we're starting to be able to hold more light in our system than we ever could even 10 years ago. I mean, not only is our consciousness changing, our bodies are changing. We're starting to see that our external reality is even changing. So as a collective, a lot of us who are very sensitive are noticing that these changes are occurring. And I've noticed it even in my sessions, the difference in my clients minds and how they remember things. So this is super exciting and new. And I feel like it's wonderful when we can all get together and share what we know about this and like how to handle it and what kind of things we can practically do.
Right. One last question, because I mean, we can go on and on because you have so much to say. But do you get anything about the future? I mean, from some of these clients, because it's
Yeah.
all happened. What are you getting about that?
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the future depends upon your belief system. So your future might be different than somebody else's, and it will literally be different. Essentially, the higher selves of my client says that each person has like a bubble of their own reality that they're creating. So right now, everybody's future could be very different. But what's the higher selves have been talking about is that we are headed in this direction of a like a nexus point where the timelines all merge. And so this nexus point could be many different things. I mean, there's a potential for like a comet, the tail to trigger a solar flash. And this is just one of the potentials. And if that is the nexus point, what will happen is during this trigger, if the tail goes in front of the sun, it will trigger a solar flash and it will dismantle our toroidal field. So the higher selves have said that this is like a toroidal field that we're in. And if the veil is dismantled, then each person will be able to, for a short period of time, see into all dimensions and realities at once.
Hmm.
So that will change the consciousness of the human being. And that will bring people into this merging. Now, if you are already somewhat aware of other realities and multidimensionality, it will not affect your psyche in the way that it might somebody who is opposed to this understanding. So once this nexus point occurs, then the timelines merge and then they split into three.
Wow.
The top one seems to be where probably everyone that's coming to the conference would be because you're already working on yourself. All it is like an inner work and releasing the trauma, cleansing that negativity from your solar plexus. And this top timeline just splits out and it moves up. It's like, it's beautiful. You know, you become aware of these other versions of you and you make friends with other versions of yourself. And people are teaching their children consciousness is so beautiful. Like people, you know, go back to Earth basically and live in these communities, sort of like Lemuria. And then the middle timeline goes down the same trajectory as the gray extraterrestrials. So you can tell that is a reality because there are gray extraterrestrials, and gray extraterrestrials are future versions of humanity that go too far with their technology. And what happened was, or what happens is that they get sick of experiencing negative emotions. So they think it's better to cut those out altogether. It's
Right.
better to put chips in the brain to get to have, you know, to maybe, you know, make you fully functioning person. But what happens is we forget our emotions and then eventually lose the planet because there's no tie to the earth without your emotions, and then lose the planet, have to live in space for millennia and do the whole cycle again. The negative timeline ends abruptly after this next nexus point. They are just transferred to another Earth-like planet. There's so many, and then they are able to, you know, continue until they're ready to do the ascension on, you know, again. So there isn't any doing anything wrong.
Right.
But to really freak you out, I would tell you that the higher selves has said there's an aspect on you on every timeline, but that is because you're focused on the one that's most important to your soul right now. But there is an aspect of you that is that not even in your reality. And there's an aspect of you that will experience all of these. So
Well, that makes sense because that's why we get glimpses or we may contract. But the highest one is sort of very similar to what Ann Tucker says, about these
Cool.
interconnectional realities that are coming online in the next couple of years, right, Suzanne? So it's
And remember, in Vegas, Darryl Anka channeling Bashar told us about the multiple trains leaving the station.
right. That's Daryl's analogy
Cool.
for those three timelines. And right now they're close, but they will start to go off in different directions depending on where your consciousness is focused. So,
He says 3 timelines too. Oh my gosh. See,
well, I
this
know
is so
no, he doesn't
cool.
say three timelines.
Oh,
He says multiple trains are leaving the station.
it's
No,
so
he doesn't
cool
say
to
that.
hear about that, because I'm so like knee deep in my own hypnosis, like straight out of hypnosis,
Well,
that
Daryl
I
will
don't know what other people talk about.
Daryl's going to be there, and Bashar's going to be there in Sedona in March. Thank you, Sarah. There's so much more I know you can share, and you've given us a big taste of what's to come, and your work is so exciting. Isn't it amazing, Suzanne, what she's doing for our
It is totally incredible, and I'm just loving your books, and I highly recommend them. I just can't say enough about the astonishing details that your clients are bringing through. It's our ancient history as well, and we all know that we have had lifetimes in Atlantis and Lemuria and Egypt and the Mayan temples, so it almost feels like reliving lifetimes that we've had, although we know there's one eternal now. So they're simultaneously unfolding at this moment, which is even more mind blowing.
right. So
I love
Sarah
it. Thank you, Sarah, for dedicating your life to
Thank you.
this.
Thank you. Sarah's going to
I
be
love it.
a keynote speaker and joining me and Suzanne at the Sedona Ascension Retreat in Sedona, March, what is it, 17th to the
14 through
14th.
14th? Yeah, pull up that post
Yay! I was
again.
gonna try and show it.
Oh, here it
Sorry.
is.
See
Just
all
go
this
to
stuff
full
on my
screen.
computer.
There
Oh,
it
that's
is.
the wrong one. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. But go to the
That's the one we just
screen
had.
of that.
Oh,
And
cool.
Sarah.
I am going to stop sharing because I'm not seeing the poster at the
Okay,
moment.
I'll put it in there. But Sarah's going
Thank
to
you,
be
dear.
joining some of major keynote speakers at this conference: Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, William Henry, Darryl Anka, and Bashar. It's going to be a fantastic conference. How can people get tickets, Suzanne?
SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. And I'll send you that flyer, Alan, and you can insert it here.
Great. Sarah, it's always fantastic to connect and be around your information and you, and just you're always so pleasant and open and uplifting. And when you meet her in person, you're going to love her, Suzanne.
I can't wait. And I'm going to reach out to you for that regression.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this will be pretty fun.
And put me on the list too. I've
Oh,
definitely.
yeah.
All right. I know you're booked
I'm doing
up.
Alan too. I'm giving Alan a session too.
I know, but
Don't forget Alan.
You're so booked up, I know, for people looking for a session, but we'll see what we can do. I appreciate it. Thank you, Suzanne. It's always amazing to go into these deep discussions. And Sarah, we'll see you soon for sure, somewhere.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for having me, and I'm so excited for this conference.
Join us for our 10th anniversary celebration. Our retreat includes a dozen indoor workshops and 8 outdoor journeys into Sedona's vortex sites, as well as a Native American performance by world champions, the Sinqua family. I am your host, Suzanne Ross, and I invite you to join us for our 10th anniversary celebration. Just visit SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. Reserve your seats today. I'll see you in Sedona.